Okay, we are ready to start. Welcome everybody to this final conference of the ENLIGHTENme project. I'm Simona Tondelli, the project coordinator, and you can see on the screen Valerio Carelli, the co-coordinator of the project, Giulia, Elisa, and other colleagues from the University of Bologna who coordinated this project. We are very happy to be here today. This is our last event, closing 4 years of hard work all together. Today we will go through the results of the project. So we are very excited to show you and to share with you what we have done during this collaboration period. But before starting with presenting our project and our results, I would like to leave the floor to Paolo Morgado. Paolo is the coordinator of another project from the same group of projects that were funded by the Commission under this area of health and public policies, emotional cities, but he is also the coordinator of the cluster urban health in this period, a cluster that was established to enhance the collaboration between the projects that were dealing with similar topics. So I would immediately leave the floor to Paolo for his presentation of the cluster activities. And thank you, Paolo, very much for being here, despite all the different commitments that you already had in your agenda. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Julia. Thank you all for having and inviting me. Congratulations for reaching at this point and be able to finish in due time. Not all the projects have been able to achieve that mark. Some are extending, so congratulations for being able to having followed the Gantt chart till the end of the project. That is quite an achievement, I think. And I will share. So as Simona was saying, I'm currently the coordinator of the urban health cluster that has been going through all the different projects that are comprising the urban health cluster. And finally, we are the last ones, just for the last mile of the urban health cluster. So I will just share some thoughts on the urban health cluster, and then I will leave you because we have also our consortium meeting going on, and we are also trying to finish until the 28th of February. So apologies to not stay until the end. I will share my screen now again. Think you can see. Ready? Confirm?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
So,
also, thank you. Really enjoyed the title that you have picked for the urban health cluster. I think it really targets what we should, as a message, pass as the work that we have been doing. So, very good title. I'll try to summarize the presentation in just 4 points. Briefly introducing the cluster, you already know, but still I'll try to mention some perspective of what I think the urban health cluster should be behind the deadline and what can be the heritage of the work that we have done for the future. Also, I'll try to introduce the topic by mention why is these matters, the work that we have done, and the type of approach, synthesize it, obviously, and then just a few comments and remarks regarding the urban health cluster. So that you already know, but just to highlight the fact that we are 6 Horizon 2020 projects that are being congregated in this urban health cluster. So from my side, emotional cities, then from your side, ENLIGHTENme, art, Resetas, and urbanome and wellbeing. And we will try more or less to be in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the good health and well-being and the sustainable cities and communities. One of the goals probably that we are trying is to go a little bit behind the walls of the academia and try to stress the work that we are doing to be able to be implemented on the streets. So to go from the classrooms, from the labs into the streets, and in the end be able to really contribute for solutions that can trigger well-being and health of the citizens. Just to introducing the topic, probably you know these as good or better than I am, but nonetheless, I think it is important to say this is the status quo. This is what we are living. We are witnessing this reality, and therefore we need to take these problems in our hands and try to find solution, not just as academics, but also as entrepreneurs, from companies, from decision makers, policy makers. All together, we need to try to tackle these issues. So these quite frightening numbers coming from different world or European organizations just underline the fact that a lot of people has been nowadays dying, most vulnerable people, but not just the vulnerable ones, people that are multi-morbidity, but also people that have no common or diagnose an issue. There is certainly the fact that they are exposed to specific type of environmental factors, they will start to have issues and they will have premature deaths. That has a huge impact also on the state burden from different countries. Just to highlight the fact that specifically in our case, for instance, more than 600 billion US dollars, according to the European Union, per day are the burden of mental health issues. So obviously there is a huge problem and we need to take that in our hands. Really like this book from Italo Calvino, that he was saying that the fact that we are living in a specific type of environment is start to stick to the way we live and the way we behave and how we feel and our moods, and that has a huge impact on our body as well, physically and mentally, and then we start to live in such conditions, and that is what we are in the end. Another issue is the superpopulation and the global urbanization. Now, it's well known that we are turning into an urban species, and they say we're going to be 70-something% by 2050. Yes, at the global, but in Europe, we are already 75% of people that lives in urban settlements. And so the increasing number of people, the density, urbanization, the artificialization of the space, it's even more a sensitive issue in European countries. So taking these statistics as a metric, what is obviously needed is that we are able to fine-tune policies, to customize policies at the local level where there is the issues, and try to improve the environmental factors and conditions that people are living, taking particular attention to more vulnerable groups, obviously, and try to mitigate or find the solutions to stop premature deaths and overall be able to create a better environmental, healthier, and promote well-being. I'm just having these two images. Probably they are not as good as I would like to be, as we need to take from the top down strategies to go for more bottom-up initiatives involving the communities and acting where the issues are really targeting and affecting the people. So the way I see what urban health cluster can contribute is like, you know, an echo or as a window of the work that each one of you and each one of the members of the other 5 Horizon Europe projects have been done, either directly or indirectly, can be oriented to the ones that have the power to make decisions. And that, I think, is the major role for the urban health cluster, to serve as a platform that are able, with the help of the European Commission, to bring together all the stakeholders from the different sectors, so public health, academia, entrepreneurs, companies, startups, policymakers, communities, all together be able to start to be aware, to be more prepared, and to have the power to make more informed decisions. And also something that all projects were taking as an approach is the fact that this data-driven approach and is people-centered, more at the human level and interdisciplinary, and taking more systemic vision of the problems instead of having in silos, and using the mixed methods and different types of technology. I think that can be achievable. So as a final remarks, I think everybody will agree that healthy cities are the foundation for more sustainable societies. And from the urban health cluster, what it can do is to provide evidence-based solutions. You know, to use science as the way to come up with metrics and measures, and to show with evidence that either empirically or more objectively, certain types of the environmental can trigger different types of reactions, and that reactions are a portray of how you feel in regard to set kind of environments, and then can lead to different types of the diseases. Also, what is important, I think, for the future is for us to have a more common agreement on how to knowledge transfer what we have done. So come up with a plan and a framework that allow us to do the knowledge transfer for policymakers, decision makers, and for the communities, so they have also more empowered and to put pressure on the decision makers. So as a call for action, I would like to say that we have to work together to turn research, more applied research in policies, and be able to create more equitable, resilient, and thriving urban environments, and make a better future for all of us. So 3 points that I can identify clear from the work that we have been doing in the cluster that are able to influencing the policy. One is to underline policy engagement. So we need to work more actively with local municipalities and communities, and the companies that are the ones that have been designing and planning the environment that we are living from the past 30, 40 years. So they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of extended empirical knowledge that we need to empower them with some of the insights from our projects to be able to, they can in the future to fine-tune their work in order to design better and towards the health environment. Also, I think it's key that we are able to provide cost effectiveness. So there is a kind of grammaty that a policymaker understands. So if you say that not this is going to cost you this much, but we can say this is going to help you to save this amount of money. And that money can be oriented to other issues that are something that people are complaining about, their needs, their to supply and fill that gap in terms of availability of certain types of infrastructures, for instance, and improved accessibility, contribute to more special justice. So I think this is something really important in the future that we are able to create. And another thing is to come up with more partnerships, public and private, and be able to find the best scenario to able to deploy smart health solutions in the context of the digital and information society that we are living, and be able to go a little bit behind the fact that we are always trying to find objectives as sustainable development goals, but not much effort has been done to monitor the performance of how different cities and decision makers are performing regarding achieving such objectives. So probably this is something that we need to put our efforts as well to create monitoring systems and to do the assessment of the performance of such local governments. And having that said, thank you so much. And it was really a pleasure to be able to attend your final event of the ENLIGHTENme project, that from the beginning I said that I really enjoy the perspective and the work that you guys were doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paolo, for your really clear presentation and the perfect framework for what will follow this afternoon. I would just add that we will have in May the final event of our cluster, the 8th of May in Brussels, so everyone is invited to participate. We will, of course, circulate all the information so that you can join if you are able. And in that occasion, we will present more deeply all the activities done by the cluster and by these 6 sister projects that have worked together in this period. So thank you very much again, Paolo. Now I'm going to briefly introduce ENLIGHTENme project. Some of you are very familiar because we have partners participating in the final conference. We have sorry, I'm trying to share in the best way possible because I do not want to. Okay, so now it should work. Okay, we have partners, we have members of the boards of the project, so someone that already knows us, and we have general public. So the idea is to very briefly present an overview of the project, but then I will leave the floor to the different partners in charge of different part of the project to present the results and what we have done together. Now, just to give you a short introduction, we started 4 years ago and worked all the 4 years in a quite huge consortium. We are 22 partners from 10 different countries. And this is something very important to try to keep together different expertise, different approaches, and different conditions that characterize our different countries. We got 5 million euros for doing our research that was asked to work on innovative actions for improving urban health and well-being. So this is the framework that Paolo already presented us. This is the framework that is not so new in the sense that the World Health Organization since some years is pushing us to work across different sectors, across different policies to enhance the concept of health and well-being that is not to be meant as a sectorial approach, but should enter all the different policies. So you can see that there are many different sectors that are involved in this achievement of health and well-being. And in particular, if we think about urban policies, they are really directly or indirectly touching many of those aspects, because we both work on physical space, but also on the relationships and on the possibility of exchange and of creating a community that the urban space can build. So among all the different urban policies, why lighting? This was a decision that we took 5 years ago. First, because we felt that it was one of the less explored topics among other determinants, social and urban determinants of health. So there are much more studies in the field of air pollution, for example, or noise, or the effect of green areas and so on, while light was and still partially is one of the less explored determinants. So one interest was in research, in deepening our knowledge about this topic. But then also the fact is that lighting is increased a lot in the last decades. So we are exposed at a very large amount of artificial light, but both outdoor and indoor. So we have also this personal exposure to indoor light due to the fact that all of us use TV, screen as the computer and the mobiles. Light is also very interesting from our point of view because it really can influence both the quality of the, let's say, the built space, both outdoor, like a square, and indoor, the house where we live, but also it can allow us to address at the same time social and physical factors. So it has this double approach that we can put in place and that we have put in place in our project. And the one other aspect that was very interesting to us to study was to address vulnerable groups, and in particular, we decided to work with older adults, which is a very large part of EU population, and it is quite affected by the quantity of light, both outdoor, because sometimes older adults do not feel confident in going outside during the night, but also if they spend a lot of time inside, they are exposed to quite a huge amount of electric light. So we designed our approach by putting people at the center of our study and dealing then with different approaches and different ways of exploring these effects of lighting on health and well-being. So we try to put together health research, ethnographic research, co-creation approaches, capacity building, working also with technologies and the market and with the citizens for raising awareness about the influence of light on their quality of life. For doing this, we work together with partners, beneficiaries of the project work together with other boards, a scientific board, and some of the members I know that are connected now, so I would like to thank them for their help during this period, so to advise us about the novelties of the project that we were exploring, but a very active role at the two other boards that you see in this slide that were the board of lighting companies and the board of cities, let's say. The first one keeps together designers, producers, managers, and was meant to cross the bridge from the research to the market and from the cities to the market. And the second one, which is made by policymakers, city mayors, city planners, served as a sort of test for our urban policies to check their feasibility, to check the needs of the cities that we had to face. So we, in this framework, we adopted the different approaches. So you have seen that this is a very complex and articulated matter, but in particular, the studies that we did were addressed to an ethnographic study that you will hear about this later, and a population-based study that together have explored the different perception and the different conditions that affect our well-being, both in the public space and in indoor, so in our houses. To do this, we also choose to have 3 different pilot cases to better test and to develop and co-create solutions and innovation with the citizens in 3 different cities that are also partner of the project. One city is Bologna, the second one is Amsterdam, and the third one is Tartu, that were chosen for their different latitude and their different also cultural and social characteristic, because we know that the interaction that we can create in the public space depends a lot on also the hours of daylight or of night that we have, but depends also on the way we use public space. So how many hours we are prone to spend outside. So this allowed us to reach different objectives that, as you can see, they tackle many different approaches. So the first phase of the project was dedicated to build a common knowledge, a common language, and a starting point for our analysis. So we wanted, and we did this to collect global evidence on indoor and outdoor lighting impacts by reviewing a lot of work that was already done by other studies. And we have started also to build a sort of knowledge exchange among the cities, the companies, through our boards, and the different researchers. Then we worked in this evidence building phase because we wanted to deepen how to deal with lighting in different conditions by engaging people, by engaging the citizens to have them co-design lighting policies. And we also worked to assess and establish the impact of light on circadian rhythms and photo entertainment. And finally, the last part of the project that is now coming to an end was dedicated to develop tools to support the decision makers, to test how the proposed solution can be scaled up and tailored to different situations, to discuss about the market uptake of the proposed innovative approaches. And we also dedicated quite a lot of effort in developing new skills to try to overcome the silos approach and to try to work transversally within the local administration, just having in mind this transversal approach dealing with health. The last slide is dedicated to all the partners that worked on this project, that I take the chance to thank now for the work that we have done together, achieving all the results that we promised 4 years ago, and achieving results that are worth of exploring also in the future months, because we have collected really a lot of information, a lot of materials that will allow us to deepen our knowledge on this topic also after the end of the project. So this is a good legacy for an Horizon project, because we were able to build a strong cooperation among us, but we also leave tools and policies and instruments to the use of the different target groups, and we have also the possibility to still deepen our research. So thank you very much. And now I leave the floor to a short ice-breaking session just to understand a bit better who is connected now before going on with the technical description of what we have achieved so far. Thank you very much.
Okay, so good morning and good afternoon also from my side. Just to see who is connected and better know each other, if you can scan this QR code, we will go through a very, very quick questionnaire. So to see our main audience today. Let's try to scan. I leave the slides for a bit so you can all access. I see some thumbs up, so probably something is actually working. Good news. Aspetta. I try to move on, so you should see something different. If you need to enter, you can also join Menti at this link and use this code to access. So you can always enter. Some answers are coming. So university is for now the most represented category. Then we have someone from the medical side and also companies, enterprises, some municipalities and consultancy. And for the others, probably it's also because we should have some public. So thank you for coming and listening and knowing our project. And we have also the network, because in our consortium we have Lucy and Eclay. So thank you for coming also to you. So we have 32 results already. Thank you, very, very good. I leave also some seconds more to see if someone else is voting. Okay, probably we can move. Next one. So we are asking which is your main expertise to see hopefully also all the different competencies that were involved in these projects and that we put together to work on this project. So probably we should see someone. Okay, urban planning, lighting, chronobiology, sleep, energy efficiency, light therapy, ethics. Oh, very confusing. Clinical research, neurology, methodology also. Oh, really? Thank you for all these inputs. Lighting designing, planning, security and intelligence, research, ethics, circadian lighting, evidence-based lighting, disease, quantum dots. We have a lot of expertise connected today. It's really nice to see this. Hopefully, some of the results we will present later will be helpful to your knowledge also and to increase, to share knowledge that we achieved during these projects. Thank you. Sleep, sociology is now, I see. High functions, mobility planning, super. Thank you very much. It's really interesting. Also communication, I see represented. It's really important part. Let's go to the next one. Where are you connected from? So let's see which states is the most represented today. Italy, Malta, Bologna, Sweden, Estonia, Edinburgh, Vancouver. So thanks to all. London, The Hague, Copenhagen, Napoli, very nice. Cambridge, Vancouver, wow. Netherlands, Amsterdam, Brussels, also Sweden, Germany. Welcome. UK, Torino. So Italy again, Greater Copenhagen. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Last one, the most difficult. What are your expectations for today? What are you expecting from our event? It should be free text, so just share what you are thinking about. What can you bring together at home this night? See results, new ideas, sharing knowledge to get fun. Oh, nice. We hope so. Best practice guidance, gaining results, insights, enjoy results, scientific results. Oh, sorting the circles from squares. It tries to collect and cluster some results. So we should see some grouped answers. Let's see if it's able to do this. Insights, results, new responses, and learning also, sharing knowledge, learning about research in lighting, learn more about what we can do and how to find it, get fun, and also, again, gaining results, inspiring results, exploring new applications. Oh, this is very interesting, and I know that there is a session all dedicated to this, so it's gonna be nice. Show can cities use the knowledge, improving the world through lighting, new insights and ideas, build relationships with key stakeholders, scientific findings. Oh, really thank you for this response. It's really nice to see that we are all keen to see our project results. So I hope you will enjoy the rest of the presentations, and I really thank you very much for participating to this ice-breaking session.
Thank you very much, Giulia, and thank you to all of you. It's a good picture of what we have done in the 4 years, because we have different expertise from many different countries all over the world. And I also appreciate it very much, not only the expectations about the results, but also about enjoying the results. So this is a very good approach that we have today. Heights from Tecnalia is our work package 1 leader, so she will break the ice of the first presentation of the results today. So the first presentation is about urban lighting and health multiscale platform. Heights will show us a bit of tools that we have developed and of knowledge that we have built during the project. Thank you very much, Heights.
Thank you very much, Simona. It's real a pleasure to be here after 5 years of adventure, because I have the honor to be here from the very, very beginning when we started thinking that. It's really nice to, after this intense journey, arrive here and we can show to you what we have been doing this time. I'm part of the team that developed one of these tools together with my colleagues in Tecnalia and also their partners. And I'm going to share my screen. Please tell me if you can see it. Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. So as Simona said, I'm going to present the Urban Lighting and Health multiscale platform. That is an open online platform to gather and share global insight on lighting policies and their impact on well-being and health. It has 2 main parts, the Urban Lighting and Health Atlas, that is a resource that compiles and organizes global knowledge on lighting policies and their impact on health. We have built this through collaboration among experts, cities, and industries. But also we have the part about urban lighting and health maps, that the idea is to combine layers of urban data, multi-domain urban data, that is socioeconomic characteristic, urban fabric, lighting features, satellite data, and this combined it with health and well-being insights for administrative and health records in Bologna, Amsterdam, and Tartu. In this way, we have been able to map a multi-domain vulnerability index that identifies the vulnerable district that will be suitable for a strategic lighting intervention. We think that uniting these diverse fields like urban planning, health, and social science, this platform become a unique resource for research and data-driven policymaking. As I said before, is a GIS-based knowledge platform that the idea is to organize and integrate new and existing data inside. For that, we started establishing a common language, because one of the challenges of this project was to really start talking between very different domains. We also make an atlas that showcases evidence and best practices in urban lighting. We create these multi-domain city-level maps to identify vulnerable areas in 3 pillar cities. And also we developed 3D models to provide context information for decision-making about natural light, use of buildings, population vulnerability, or analysis of satellite information. And everything is integrated in the ENLIGHTENme platform, as you can see here. The Atlas part is you can go there, going in the right up in the Atlas section. Currently, it contains a total number of 151 items. 30 of them are georeferences and can be filtered by keywords, authors, and type. And then we have the city-level urban lighting and health maps. That it's a compilation of maps at district level of different results. One is indicator maps for each of the indicators in the 3 different domains: socioeconomic, urban, lighting, and health. Then we have produced these subdomain indices for each of the domain, and we have combined all of them in a multi-domain vulnerability urban index. The idea is that with this index, we can identify areas with high urban vulnerability, and we can establish priorities for a strategic lighting intervention. We have complement this with other maps, diachronic maps for socioeconomic indicators, urban and health facility maps, and lighting maps also, including satellite maps and lamps maps. These are the indicators that we have mapped. We have more than 45 indicators mapped in 4 domains. And we have started mapping these different data sources, integrating them in different thematic maps. Then we build the different subdomain maps. And finally, we have a combination of these maps for the district preselection. With this, we were able to create the indexes for the different subdomains. As you can see, in the end, there were 5 different subdomains, because the index for light was quite tricky for us. After talking with the experts, we realized that it was different from the perspective of well-being and safety, or for the sleeping point of view. So we create 2 different scenarios: the well-being scenario and the sleep scenario. So we could include these both scenarios in the access, also acknowledging the complexity of the issue that is the lighting, urban lighting. And with this, we create the multi-domain urban vulnerability index. And then we were able to select district by this vulnerability index. You could see here in the right which district for each city were pre-selected, and finally it was decided to select one of them for the testing area. And then for this testing area, we developed the district level multiscale 3D urban model. There are a 3D representation of the 3 selected districts in CityGML that combines geometry and semantics and provides context information for decision making. As I said before, natural light, use of building, population vulnerability, analysis of satellite information, and also indicators calculated through simplified algorithms according to the data provided by the city. That buildings, a lighting point, also satellite indicators, natural lighting irradiance per 1 square meter, lighting measurement specifically for Bologna, other context information such as the location of shops and restaurants, and also power and type of lamps. But you will see, I mean, can I see it? Because I mean, in this presentation, everything is easy, but we are going today try really to show to you, and maybe my colleague Amaya can put the link to the platform, so you can also test the tool in real time. So yes, you can see it. Let's see, because these things are always quite tricky when you make it online. But this is the real platform. As you can see, this is our homepage. Here in the right, you can see the different sections. The last one, the DSS, we are going to show to you a little later in this day today. But here we have the atlas, as you can see here. You have all the geotype case studies, but also you can check by keywords, by interest. For example, you can go to chronobiology and see what option you have. And if you go here, you have the direct link to our colleague of Surrey and information regarding their research. You could also, as I said before, go to the geographically targeted case studies and see where would you like to check something. For example, you want to see something in Lund, you can go here to the lighting lab in the Faculty of Engineering in the Lund University. I really will encourage you to go through all the atlas. It's a lot of information there. It has been an effort from the consortium to try to find the state of the art of the information that could be interesting for the topic. So I think it's a real nice result for everybody. But we can go to the maps now. For example, in the case of Amsterdam, here you have our final index, the combined index for district, but you can see also the different indexes, the socioeconomic vulnerability index, the urban vulnerability index, the light vulnerability index, and also the health vulnerability index for the case of Amsterdam. But as you can see, you have the same information for Bologna and also for Tartu. The same for specific indicators. Here you have the map of all indicators and the year that has been gathered. I'm showing the case of Amsterdam specifically because here we could go a little down in the scale to the big, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, scale. Because it was information available. And as you can see, we really look into older people. For example, the percentage of household of people that are older than 65 years and are living alone was one of the indicators which we consider that was prioritized for the index. So you have different, all the indicators are two scales. For the urban indicators, the same here. Yeah, you have public green areas per capita, accessibility to green areas, accessibility to public transport. I mean, you have really a lot of indicators here that has been mapped. But here in the urban indicators, you have also at grid level that was studied, for example, the grid of mixed uses and the grid of variety of uses. And also we have the light indicators, the light regarding power of lamps, the percentage of LED of lamps that are LED, also the mean color temperature of lighting points. And a lot of indicators also about the diseases that literature say that could be affected by lighting. So I mean, the Parkinson, dementia, breast cancer, prostate cancer, stroke, psychosis. I mean, you can see depression, you can see all of them. But I wanted to show you one of of other maps that are not only indicators. Also, we map information that we think that could be useful for the context, to giving context for the decision making. For example, urban characteristic like train station with the buffer, also public transport stop with the buffer, the same for green areas and the buffer, and the same for, I don't know, culture and culture buffer, you can see here. And also, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite ones, are the light mappings, because we were able to map the satellite data that was acquired by satellite. It's a little slow today. Okay, here. So we have the nighttime acquisition that then after was processed to have the calibrated luminance for candela 4 meter squares, and that you can combine, for example, with the type of lamps, if they are LED or not, but also with the power of lamp. So everything was mapped. And I think that could be really useful, not only for us, also for other research topics. And then but this time I'm going to show the 3D maps. This is Bologna in this case. These are the 3D models that I mentioned before. You can see here the Piazza Lambrakis, that is our test area. It's a little time, but it's around here. Here is our test area. We have information about buildings. Each building has some information that could be useful also. For example, the number of floors, the use of building, but also the solar radiance incidence, the number of average orientation of the building's depth, some indicators that could consider that were important for the daylight availability, like from land with respect to the constructed area of housing. But we have also information about lamps. It's lamps, all the information that has the city also is here, like the type of lamp, of also the exact localization. But also we make some study about the natural light. You can see here this result of this mapping, the annual global irradiation, but also the radiation, for example, in winter solstice or in the summer solstice. I mean, I want to go a little fast because it's really a lot of information and you can really check it when you want. I mean, this platform is available, but I want to show you also that we have the information about the lamps, but also about some of the indicators of the buildings, for example, the use, the number of dwellings, total population, percentage of inhabitants over 64 years old. Here we also map the vulnerable population, purchase for LED with respect to the constructed area of housing, the indicators that I mentioned before, within the scene, number of average overseas. And I'm going to finish with this. Also, it was a study, the artificial lighting strategy for satellite. I mean, it was making, that was these hexagons that are appearing slowly, are this all information that that was analyzed from the satellite information, like district luminance, grid luminance, also the blue, and also specific information for the test area. I'm not expert in this, but I mean, I think it's done a big work to try to translate the satellite information to some more specific analysis in our test area. And that is all from my side. I don't know if there is any question or something that to comment.
Thank you, Aitz. Thank you very much, because I think you were able to show the complexity of what we did, but also the need to take into account really different parameters, different aspects that all together can contribute to build this general quality of urban life inside our cities. If there is one question, we are a bit late, but Okay, no, so we can go on. This is the turn of Donna Slater from London School of Economics, Configuring Lights, Social Lighting Interventions in the 3 ENLIGHTENme cities. Some results. Donna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Simona. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yeah, great. And let's hope the sound works today. Delighted to be here at the end of this project. As Simona stressed at the beginning, this has been certainly the most complicated piece of research I've ever been involved in. Also lasted a phenomenally long time, but we're still friends, and it's actually been extraordinarily interesting. For those of you who have not been with this entire journey, very briefly, Work Package 2, as it's poetically called, was basically the area for social research, design research, community engagement, and ways of working with specific communities to develop a knowledge of both the residents and the people who use particular spaces, and also to develop lighting responses to them. Very much focused on the 3 target districts in the 3 ENLIGHTENme cities, and very much focused on doing this through the case study or through the specific focus of age and aging, and working with different kinds of aging populations in the cities. Thank God it does work. Again, for those of you who haven't been with this, very briefly, there were, the reason why it's so complicated, there were about 5 main components to what Work Package 2 was doing, going across the whole, effectively 2 years that Work Package 2 was in full flow. One of the main concerns, a concern throughout, was qualitative social research, and specifically trying to understand and map the very diverse lives and practices of older people in the 3 cities. How do they engage with public space? This is the outdoor lighting side of things. Where did the public spaces we're working on, where did they fit into the ways of life of different kinds of older people, and so on? Then to work with that material and with workshops, urban lighting lab workshops, to develop lighting solutions, basically co-designing lighting, which was then implemented in the pilot areas. And these were small to medium-sized lighting interventions, which were installed in areas. We worked with areas which were of importance to the entire populations of those areas, but also specifically to older people within those areas. So these were strategic interventions in communities on a reasonable scale, which allowed us then to explore what kind of impact we had, what difference anything made in terms of lighting interventions. Also, these were courtesy of our industrial partner, NERI. These were lighting technologies which allowed us to more or less control key parameters, basically light intensity and color temperature from mobile phone apps. So we could actually we could use those installations as experimental laboratories with local residents, playing with at least those parameters to see what difference it made, and also to help people understand more about light and lighting. So assessment of those lighting interventions. And then there was an additional component, in many ways one of the most interesting, which was working with a small panel, about 10, 11 households in each of the 3 target districts, to look at the lighting, indoor lighting within the households of older people. And this largely comprised carrying out lighting audits, actually just spending many hours with people in their houses, flats or houses, looking at how they use different spaces, how they lit those, and then doing design interventions to see if we could improve the way in which the lighting operated with them. There's just a list of, we delivered our deliverables, they're all done. And again, that kind of complex program was basically completed around June last year. Going forward, what I would want to stress is simply that there is as you might expect from what I've just described, there's an incredible volume of material, of qualitative social research, design research, documentation of these spaces and so on and so forth, which we're now processing and will be processing way beyond the life of this, the end point of the actual funding, to develop case studies on each of the individual cities, methodological discussions, and comparative conclusions, and so on and so forth. This is really difficult to get across, particularly in about a 10 or 15-minute presentation. So one little strategy I want to employ here, with apologies to people who saw what I'm about to show you yesterday, we did a film, which is a good way of getting across the feel of these sites and the feel of the kind of work that we were doing in them. This was produced by Letra Bordenaro, a member of our team, and directed by James Ratti. And I'm just going to show you the first 5 minutes of it, 5-ish minutes, so you can get a sense of what Work Package 2 actually got up to and how it felt. Aging is an increasingly important issue in modern societies, and older people are an extremely important aspect of urban life. There's a tendency for people in general to think of older people as one category of person, but actually looking at differences in the details in how people age is important. ENLIGHTENme is a project which aimed to look at the impact of lighting on the health and well-being of older people. The Configuring Light research group at the London School of Economics carried out one part of the ENLIGHTENme program.
We dealt with how urban lighting could support activities, inclusion and comfort for older people in public space.
We did a comparative study of 3 European cities, Amsterdam, Bologna, and Tartu, which actually involved older people, allowed them to articulate their different concerns, and for us to respond to those concerns through different lighting designs and to install those designs. What we found out from our research is that the elderly differ enormously both between these 3 cities and within them in terms of what they were concerned about, what activities they were trying to carry out, what value they placed on public space. Cities need much greater social understanding of differences within their populations, and to treat lighting not as a purely technical issue or a matter of compliance with standards, but actually part of the way in which they construct spaces and environments for particular and differing needs.
Gli effetti della luce sulla salute sono ancora non così noti. È per questo che ENLIGHTENme ha deciso di lavorare proprio su questo tema, in particolare coinvolgendo una fascia di popolazione ritenuta più vulnerabile rispetto a questi effetti negativi, e cerca di integrare il tema della luce all'interno delle politiche urbane, ma anche delle politiche di salute.
Il quartiere Savena si colloca nella parte est della città di Bologna, e nella parte quindi in periferia, e in particolare Piazza Lambrakis è il cuore di questo quartiere, che è nato negli anni 60 ed è un cuore molto vivace dove ci sono molte abitazioni e molte anche persone che provengono da diverse culture e anche molte persone anziane.
Questa piazza è un luogo di incontro, di comunità, tutti si trovano qui, bambini, famiglie, anche gli anziani si trovano nelle loro panchine lì, quindi c'è anche uno scambio culturale, generazionale.
Facciamo le nostre chiacchiere da giovani di una volta, una bellissima piazza che ci dà anche dei ricordi.
Una volta non riuscivi a mangiare una pizza in una panchina perché non vedevi quello che mangiavi. La luce è molto, insomma, rende più visibile tutto in piazza.
In Bologna, we work with them through recreating spaces for the different groups. So there's like the reading club that has one part of the square. There's the guys, the boys, let's say, that are in another part of the square, and children in the middle. There's a complete cohesion, but at the same time, each space is kind of differently addressed, and lighting has been supportive, and it's in fact different in different parts of the squares.
Stazioniamo molto di più in piazza rispetto a prima. Queste luci qua, non vediamo l'ora che arrivi alle 5:30 adesso per l'accensione.
Dico sempre di essere qui a quell'orario, perché è diventato un appuntamento magico.
La gente è molto contenta di vedere finalmente il portico e la piazza illuminati. La sera d'estate specialmente, molta gente che rimane più fuori, la bellezza del posto che ha dato un po' di freschezza, di novità, ecco.
We did try different control system, different application on phone, where actually the residents can change their own scenario. That it's really innovative. I don't think it has ever been done. And because in Bologna we had a very strong community, we managed to have one person elected among the residents to actually control the app.
Mattia è molto bravo e ogni tanto ci accontenta. Io preferisco la luce calda perché l'atmosfera mi sembra più calma, più familiare, più accogliente, ecco.
They're really intrigued by this idea that is becoming really their squares, like their lounge.
Questa è una piazza che, essendo in sicurezza, è un grande cortilone che permette di fare veramente grandi cose, ha un'enorme potenzialità.
Just behind.
Sorry to cut Olia off as we move to talk to. You can see the whole thing. We're still finishing. There's some fine tuning to do on it, but it will be mounted on the website, and you'll be able to see the full film. I hope it gives you an idea of the flavor of what we're doing. Also, probably the complexity again. Of doing qualitative social and design research over 2 years, responding to it and actually doing a design and then using that as a test bed to explore people's relationship with light. I hope you also get a taste just from the Bologna segment of the different ways in which lighting might enter into the well-being of older people and the ways it might support or not support their kinds of lives. Again, that's the kind of thing we're looking at. Findings is possibly not the right word to describe what you come out of 2 years of that kind of research with, but certainly we could talk a little bit about what have we learned. The overriding message, the overriding kind of demonstration from all this kind of data is about the need to approach lighting of public space not through generalized categories like the elderly or older people, but through real fine-grained understanding, real evidence about the diversity of people's uses of space. Bologna was fairly homogeneous. Other places, Amsterdam, for example, talking to ethnic minorities in our area versus white ethnic Dutch, led to completely different views of the relationship of older people to public space, and therefore to very, very different and even conflicting views of what lighting can do within those public spaces. So the first message and the main finding, and again, this is what will be substantiated through the kind of writing we do from this material, is that people use and understand space in radically different ways, and that we need to look at ways in which lighting can, as part of urban design, can respond to those differences, can actually see those differences and respond to them. This is obviously a very strong evidence-based argument to start not from generalizations and policies about populations in general, but rather to start from the whatever amount of recognition of difference and the richness of different people's lives cities can actually engage in. It also means that very clearly we are delivering a very strong argument about treating lighting not as a technical or engineering matter. Technology is crucial to everything we do within lighting, but ways of bringing those technological questions, the street lighting questions, so on, into really deep connection with a real social understanding of people's use of space. Another kind of message, I'll go quickly through the others, that's the overriding message, and there are different ways of substantiating it and different conclusions that can be drawn. A very, very important aspect of using the kind of methodology that we had available was to go in great detail into methodological issues. What is involved in trying to understand the impact of lighting and to get the kinds of opinions of people about the atmosphere or the kind of functionality of the spaces that we're working in. Put very, very bluntly, it is an incredibly complex matter to get at any sense of how people engage with the lighting of a space. We can show that in great detail. It casts enormous doubt on the kinds of evidence that is normally used to assess lighting, for example, surveys or opinion polls, or very momentary consultations. So there's a lot to be said about how do we actually raise questions and develop understandings of what the lighting is actually doing in a space. It's a strong argument then against basing lighting for the well-being of sectors of the population like the elderly, basing it on purely technical standards. And we've found ourselves resisting more and more any kind of requirement to say, oh, it's best to have 3000 Kelvin or a dimming level of X, Y, or Z. Obviously, the kind of response in this kind of work is say, well, there is no standard which fits everyone. Even between health issues and well-being, things which might support health might be terrible, for example, for the atmosphere of Piazza Lambracas in Bologna. That's to say, there can be major conflicts between health and well-being recommendations, let alone between, say, the elderly we were working with of 80 years plus versus very active people at around 65. All of this is an argument for not starting again with technical standards or generalizations across a population, but finding strategies for engaging within the means of a city with the actual diversity. I'm aware I'm probably running out of time. Once I get started on this stuff, it's very, very difficult to stop. One other thing which again, I think we focus on quite a bit, and certainly comes out of our indoor lighting work, is that when we talk about the impact of lighting on sectors like like older people and different kinds of older people, we need to focus a great deal on micro impacts, micro level impacts. Changing one light bulb in an older person's home, we found repeatedly, might make the difference between them actively aging, as the phrase goes. That's to say, being able to continue reading or knitting or reading the newspaper and so on and so forth, and not being able to do so. It often came down to a single light bulb rather than sort of major impact measurements or correlations. Finally, all of this leads to the final work of Work Package 2, which was to feed into different kinds of recommendations. Again, careful recommendations, which on the whole don't take a technical form, but rather are recommendations to stay within the kind of spirit of what I've been describing, of asking cities and other actors within lighting to attend to the lived experience of the people whose space they are lighting, and come up not with technical standards, but rather different strategies and methodologies for actually engaging with the populations whose lives they're intervening in. This has taken at least two broad forms. One, which I think will be talked about later anyway, which are the guidelines, which is to promote a different kind of strategy, which asks cities in particular to mainstream lighting policy and design within a broad approach to the well-being of citizens. Again, rather than applying global standards, to treat lighting as an design and research as an iterative process. That's to say, as something which has to be extended across long-term development within districts. And also to make as much use as possible, something we were exploring in our own work, of the increasingly responsive and dynamic nature of lighting technologies. That's to say, rather than settle on, as in the olden days, lighting investments in which you would set up lighting for the next 30 years, rather to treat lighting as something which can change, respond, and adapt, as we worked with dimming schedules and color temperature. Again, as an approach to tailoring lighting to difference within populations. And finally, we've been participating in producing policy briefs, which address some of the main areas of our work: co-design and community engagement, practical ways of approaching those, practical ways of doing the kind of social and spatial research needed to understand sectors of the population, like the older people, and the point I raised before, dealing with lighting as a responsive and adaptive technology, rather than as a matter of static standards. Thanks all.
Thank you, Don, very much for your presentation, the amazing video, and the great work done during the 4 years of struggling together. Thank you very much. If there are questions, we have time for one or two. Otherwise, I will give the floor to Meike and the colleagues from 3 different partners that have worked together on the effects of lighting on mental health and well-being. Meike, are
Yes,
you? Okay.
I'm here. Thank you, Simona, for giving me the floor. I will share my presentation. Yes. So hopefully you can see my presentation. I'm very happy to be here, and I echo my collaborative colleagues in this ENLIGHTENme project for a fascinating 4 years. I think we achieved a lot. We started all with an open, exploring mind, and we conducted a lot of work. And we also are very, well, happy with the fact that we still have a lot of data. So this project ends officially at the end of October, but scientific-wise, it feels like a starting point because we have a lot to still to dig into. I've been the work package leader of work package 3, which is the population-based lighting study on older adults. But the majority of the work has also been done by other people. It has been a very lovely collaborative effort. So I only will give you a couple of slides as introduction, and then I hand over to other people of the project that present the part they have been working on. Well, just to give you a short overview of our objectives, the main objective of work package 3 was to assess the impact of indoor and outdoor lighting innovations on entrainment of circadian rhythms, sleep and personal light exposure, and mental and physical health. We collected data in 3 different cities, a control group and an intervention group in Amsterdam, Bologna, and Tartu. And we had a protocol where we had a baseline measurement and a follow-up study. Major aims were to study the causes of individual differences in health and well-being in the baseline sample, which also fits the presentation of Don just about work package 2, about the heterogeneity of the population we're looking at. Of course, because we had a control and an intervention group, we were interested in the effects of the experimental change of lighting, especially the indoor lighting, and as an overarching aim also the cost effectiveness of the performed intervention. So is adding light to a household a cost-effective way of intervening for mental and physical health? Well, I now hand over to Anne. Anne has been a PhD student on this project with me here in Amsterdam, and she conducted a lot of research, and she will present it. Anne, I'm here to forward the slides if you like to.
Yes. Okay, thank you for having me. So first I will present on our systematic review on the effect of light and well-being, because this was of course the aim of the overall project that we did here, but we wanted to know first what was actually already out there in the literature and what studies already had been done on the effect of light on well-being. Next, please. So when we started looking at this, we found that light is a very broadly studied topic, which is of course very good news. However, we also found that most studies really focus on the effect of light on specific diseases, sleep a lot, and mental health disorders. For example, here you can see some examples for the effect of light therapy on bipolar depression or insomnia or Parkinson's disease, while of course our specific interest was the effect on well-being. Next, please. So what we did to study that specifically is that we searched in a lot of scientific databases, specifically using the terms light and specifically well-being in a number of different forms, as you can see on the slide here. But those were the 2 terms that had to be in the paper. So from all the papers that we found, which was over 24,000 papers that we scanned, we extracted all of the characteristics from the paper. So for example, data on what kind of sample they studied, but also the type of light design that they used and the survey that they used for well-being, for example. And then after doing that, we evaluated all the separate effects that were found in those papers. And we basically summarized that to see what the mean effect of light on well-being was in the literature. Next, please. So we found a number of things. Here are some results on the study characteristics, which was based on 74 papers in the end. So we found, for example, that most of the studies on light and well-being were done in the US, in Canada, and China. And then on the second place, we have the UK, but also the Netherlands. Very, very tiny, but we're doing quite well on the studies on light. And then we looked at the age groups, as you can see on the left bottom. And we found that most of the age groups that are studied when we look at light and well-being are the adults, so the 30 to 40 and 40 to 50-year-olds, and that the studies on the 60 and over people are really lacking. And then we also assess which well-being skills were primarily used. Well, you can see that there's a broad range of skills used, but the most used are the PANAS scale, which is the positive and negative effect scale, and one on, sort of like a health well-being questionnaire that's also peaked a lot here, but also some things on satisfaction with life and quality of life were used also. Next, please. Then for the results, when we looked at the summarized effects, so here we went down to 30 papers that were eligible for this type of analysis. We found that overall, there was an effect of 0.47 on well-being, which means that there was like a small to moderate effect of light on well-being if we took the sum of all the papers in general. And you can also see that in the figure here, because here you can see all the different papers, and every sort of block or bar that leads towards the right finds a positive effect in their data. And if you sum them all together, we find a small positive effect too. Next, please. So comparing this to what we're doing in ENLIGHTENme is that the previous literature showed that 75% of the studies had a sample size of lower than 100 people, while in ENLIGHTENme we had data on 199 participants. In the previous literature, most papers looked at the earlier age groups, while here we took the age group of 65 and older. Most studies were conducted in one season, while in ENLIGHTENme we took all 4 seasons, which is good. And then usually the intervention period is relatively short, say 1 week or maybe a month. But in ENLIGHTENme, we had the time to really study them for 3 months. So these are all really ways we really contribute to the field and provide new insights to what was already there. Next. Then I'd like to show the results on the baseline data. So in this project, we look at how light, activity, and sleep are associated with well-being and health. Next, please. So first, what we need to get the data is to recruit participants. So we had a large program of how we were going to recruit all the participants that we needed in the 3 cities that were just presented. So we did posters and flyers, we made videos, we went to a lot of local initiatives, and on the bottom you can see all the initiatives that were executed in the end, which in the end resulted in over 2 events per week in about 1.5 years. So this was a large effort that we underwent. Next, please. Once we recruited all the participants underwent a 2 weeks baseline assessment. And in this time, the people did the assessment at home. So we went to them, we gave them all the materials that we needed, and we gave them a protocol to execute at home. During these 2 weeks, the participants collected data on themselves in different ways. So for example, we had survey data on things like well-being and health and sleep, but we also collected objective data, for example, melatonin data and their DNA, and also objective data on activity and light exposure. Now, after collecting all this data, and to be clear, this is all before the intervention, so really the data before changing anything in their lives, we had data of 199 participants for which we could do network analysis, linear regression, and interaction models to see how all these variables interact. Next, please. So the first thing we did is we looked at a network of the different variables that we have to see which variables correlated with each other. And from this one, we found 2 significant correlations. The one is that quality of life was correlated to phase angle difference, which I will explain. And this means that having a better quality of life is associated with less circadian misalignment. And we found a very small correlation between subjective happiness and sleep quality, which showed that more subjective happiness was related to slightly lower sleep quality in this sense. Next, please. And then we went to our linear regressions, and to be very clear, in this one we also look at associations between the light, sleep, and activity measures and well-being and health. But in this case, you control for all the other variables. So in that sense, this regression or correlation is a bit of a stronger design than the basic network correlation. So here the question is, how much of the variance in individual differences in well-being and health can be explained by light, activity, sleep, and the genetic variables that we have? And here we find that there were no significant associations. Also, the 2 significant associations from the correlations disappeared in this analysis, which means that the light, activity, sleep, and genetic variables did not contribute to the individual differences in well-being and health. Next one. Then we also prepared the interaction models, and here the question can be, do the associations with light, sleep, activity variables depend on the individual differences in well-being and health? In other words, and better words in my opinion, is the association between light and sleep quality different for people who experience higher well-being compared to people with lower well-being? So we also did this for all the variables that we have. And again, unfortunately, we found no significant interaction in these models. Next, please. Then for our conclusion, in this data, we did not find any association between light, sleep, well-being, and health in this specific group of 199 elderly. But we do get a lot of implications from this. So one, if we compare this to the literature, it shows that it's important to replicate findings that we get in one sample to other samples, and to check multiple types of data. So use both subjective, but also check the objective data, for example. Then our study has a high ecological validity. A lot of the studies that were done before are, for example, done in a very strict laboratory setting, where our ecological setting shows that there's much more in the world than only a lab. We have to deal with a lot of factors at the same time. And our results show that maybe a more complex model of light and well-being is better suitable than a simple model. And I think our results call for expectation management when it comes on light interventions. So if you communicate this, that if you find results, we are more likely to find small results than to find large effects of light on well-being. And then for future steps, it would be interesting to see if we can increase the light intensity, or increase the number of light sources, and maybe to see if that really makes a difference. Then it would be nice to collect longitudinal data for measure within person variability and over a longer period of time. So you can track someone for, say, 3 or 4 weeks instead of asking them questions once or twice. And another thing is that we should be cautious in the way we phrase the effect of light on well-being, if there is an effect. And we should always consider individual differences here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Very nice overview of wonderful work. And now I would like to give the floor to Deborah Constantina from the University of Surrey, who worked with the activity and light exposure data.
Hi, thanks, Micah. Yes, so I'm going to show people's responses to light and their influence on rest activity rhythms and sleep from 2 different views. So first looking at personal light exposure, and then looking at exposure to the halo lamp. So this will be mainly data on the light sensor that participants were wearing around their neck and the wrist actigraph measuring their daily activity rhythms. Next, please. Yes, so this is the distribution of cumulative light exposure across all light recordings that we have, so including baseline recordings and follow-up recordings. And based on this distribution, we can already see that there's a lot of variability in this data, which is expected for real-world studies. And then based on this distribution, we also created these 3 groups. We categorized individuals based on low light exposure, moderate, and high light exposure. Next. And we then investigated how these light exposure categories influenced their daily activity rhythms. And we observed that participants within the high light exposure group exhibited higher levels of daytime activity compared to the low light exposure group. Also, those in the low light exposure group experienced less sustained and consolidated periods of wakefulness compared to the high light exposure group. And they also had an earlier onset of light exposure. So these results reflect the influence of personal light exposure on daily rhythms and support the notion that insufficient light exposure can impair daytime activity, daytime functioning. Next, please. So after looking at personal light exposure, we focused on the effects of the halo light supplementation by quantifying the mean start and end times of halo light exposure. So these are self-reported data. from activity diaries that participants were filling out during the first week of follow-up. And then here we plot the mean start time and end times of halo exposure by chronotype. So we see that morning types start and end the intervention earlier compared to the evening types. And this is also something that validates our data because it's already also established in the literature that chronotype can predict start of light exposure. Next, please. Yes, so after that, we assessed whether the timing of light supplementation influenced daily rhythms by identifying cutoff points for morning and evening light exposure. So those who end the light intervention after 6 p.m., so those who extend the halo exposure beyond 6 had significantly higher intraday variability. This is a measure of fragmentation, so it shows that their activity is more fragmented when they exposed to the lamps later. Next. And those participants who started the intervention before 10 a.m. Had higher levels of daytime activity, so higher M10 activity, and they had more consolidated daytime activity levels, so suggesting that early light exposure promotes more active and sustained stable wakefulness. Next. And we also quantified dim light melatonin onset as a measure of circadian timing. And again, this differs across chronotype, with earlier chronotypes having an earlier onset of melatonin secretion. And this also validates this population and agrees with established literature and shows that we have a powerful data set to work with. And as Micah said, we still have lots to do. So we're planning to look more deeply at timing of personal light exposure and quality of light as the devices that they were wearing measures all the different wavelengths. So we want to look at blue light at different times of day. We also want to stratify participants based on their baseline exposure, because it might be that those that were exposed to low levels of light at baseline had more benefits with the light intervention. So we still have some analysis to perform. And I know time is short, and I'm probably running out of time, but I'm available for questions later, because I think now Bologna will show also some data related to the intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Very nice and clear overview of these wonderful data that have been collected. I would now like to give the floor to Francesco to show the results of the effects of the change in light exposure.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks everyone. Very, very happy, very excited to be able to share with you these results. Next slide, please. So just a quick reminder of the design of this study. So this was a parallel group randomized control trial where subjects were randomly assigned to one intervention group that were given a special halo lamp, and a second group of controls that did not receive the lamp and basically kept doing their life without the supplement of light exposure. Next. Okay, so this first challenge we encountered was the recruitment rate. We were planning to recruit 1,500 people overall from the 3 cities, and we recruited slightly over 200. And in commenting this, I must remind you that this was a very, very ambitious project, because implementing a design like this in real world is extremely complex. On the other hand, this is the only way we can move ahead with our knowledge on this topic, because if we want to have generalizable and data and a representative sample, this is the way to go. So the next. So as Mike, Deborah already said, we have an enormous amount of money, of data to be analyzed. So what I will show you now is just the tip of the iceberg. Our planned analysis were included the investigation of differences between the intervention and control group. In next, self-reported questionnaires, mainly quality of sleep, chronotype, quality of life and well-being and mental health, each one of these parameters with a specific scale, quantitative scores. Actigraphic measures assessed with the wearables that gave us an idea, a quantitative idea of the quantity of movement of participants. Next. And light measures, also wearables, were used to meter the quantity of light that each participant was exposed to. And next, biological material, namely saliva, that was collected from each participant for genetic analysis and melatonin production during the 24-hour the daytime sleep circle. So next. So again, I will show you just the first step in an overall analysis, like a gross estimate of the whole population on the main outcomes that were next. Sleep quality, or measured with the scale that's called the PSQI, quality of life and well-being with the Euroqual 5D scale. Circadian rest activity measures, again, with wearables measuring the actigraphy wearables. And next, the LMO that was mentioned already. So the production of melatonin. Next. And also some genetic analysis on the mitochondrial genetic material, mitochondrial haplogroups. Next. Okay, so these two tables show you how the individual factors, the top one shows you the individual socio-demographic characteristic of our sample at baseline. By treatment status means, you know, in one column you see the control and the other the treatment arm. They are represented by city, by age, gender, and season. And the table below shows you the main outcome at baseline by treatment status relative to the scales that are measuring the main outcomes that I was showing in the previous slide. So PSQI, quality of life, actigraphy measures, and melatonin. So next. The two groups, control and treatment, are pretty well balanced. So this means that randomization overall worked well in balancing the groups. Only the quality of sleep was slightly unbalanced with a control group that seemed to have worse sleep quality than the intervention group. This may in part be explained by thinking that, you know, here we are talking about healthy people. These are not people affected by a condition that may have, you know, they may be more motivated to participate in a scientific trial. These were, you know, citizens feeling well that wanted to give a contribution to science. So probably those ones who were randomized in the LAMP group were more motivated to, you know, to be part of the study being in the treatment arm than those ones in the control arm. So again, this is one important reason for doing some further analysis, controlling for such difference. Next. So these are the main results, again, on the overall sample that we measured, that we analyzed so far. So the table above shows differences in the questionnaire score from baseline to the end of follow-up for both groups. We found no statistically significant differences on the overall sample. Although you can see that in the above table, a p-value of 0.042, 0.035 for the PSQI and Euroqol 5D respectively can suggest, some statistical significance. But by putting in a multivariable linear regression model, sleep quality and quality of life as adjustment variables, we saw that this statistically significant difference disappeared. And this tells us that the difference we observed in the two scales are due to different baseline values rather than our intervention with the lamp. Here in this model, we just considered the season of recruitment and baseline values added to the model for adjustment. So this was only one first step to do what is ahead of us in terms of analysis that I will show you in the next slide. Well, this is also another analysis that was performed on mitochondrial haplogroups, the distribution of sleep variables. Here too, on the overall sample, we couldn't find any statistically significant differences. Next. So next steps are more specific subgroup analysis. Deborah already mentioned some of them that are already in progress. So we want to, these subgroup analyses are absolutely necessary for the things that Anne was mentioning in her presentation. When you work on a topic like this in a real world setting, of course, there are many other variables. The sample is real world, so it's quite heterogeneous. Therefore, in order to be consistent with a precision medicine approach, we need to identify subgroups and stratify, first of all, by season, latitude, and daylight time. And then, next, consider that there are within our sample different chronotypes, which are genetically determined characteristics of circadian entrainment among people. Next. Also, this is another extremely important factor to consider in subgroup analysis. So the lamp light exposure. Using, the lamp can be considered, like a drug, like an intervention on people. And if we use a drug without considering the dose and the way it's administered, the administration way, we can have very different effects. So using the lamp in different ways, in different timings, may produce different results. So this is another factor to account for, and also clock genes variability in response to light exposure. This is a genetic factor. Thank you, and I will be available for answering questions.
Thank you very much for this wonderful overview, and especially to show the richness of the data and all the possibilities that are out there for us to study. For the last bit of work package 3, I would like to hand over to David to give you some insights on the economic analysis.
Thanks, Micah, and good afternoon, everyone. If you just move the slide forward, Micah, please. So, as colleagues have mentioned, we've done this analysis evaluating the impacts of these indoor lights on health and well-being and various biological and other measures. To really try and convince policymakers that something is worth doing, it's increasingly important, very important actually, in many countries to look at economic arguments. And we've built in an economic evaluation, and I'll explain what that means in a second. But I do want to stress one thing about economic studies, and it's quite important. They're not about saving money. They're about using money and resources in the best possible way. So if we find, for instance, that it costs more to improve health and well-being, but the outcomes are good enough, then that's something that we as a society typically would consider might be worth doing. So it's not just about saving money and saving resource, but sometimes we can do both. We can have better outcomes and we can save resource. So we've built this economic evaluation in. We've collected data from all participants on their contacts with health services over the baseline and follow-up, so over a 3-month time period. And again, we focused in terms of the economic analysis on the measure that Francesco talked about, the EQ5D, which is a measure of quality of life that is often used in health economic analyses. Next slide, Micah. Oh, yeah. So in simple terms, what is economic evaluation? Well, really, it involves two things, really, in its most simple sense. We're comparing the costs of 2 or more different strategies, and we're comparing it to changes in outcomes. And in this case, we're focused primarily on quality of life, but we are also looking at other outcomes as well. There's some of the other outcomes that are included in the analysis. And we present then ultimately to policymakers the difference in cost and the difference in effect. And believe me, this is something that can make a big difference, certainly with healthcare policymakers, but it's increasingly used in other sectors as well. Next slide, Micah. Okay, so not a very exciting looking slide, I'm afraid. I'm not as good at drawing slides as other people. But what did we find in terms of health service utilization? And before I say anything at all, I want to just echo the comments that others have said about the way in which we interpret the results here, because this is a very complex intervention. It seems like you just have a lamp and that's fine, but it's actually complex because it's exactly as Francesco's saying, it's about the level of exposure, the time of day, there's the various characteristics. So we have to be careful about that. It's not a drug, it's not a pill. It's more complex than that. But in terms of interpreting the results, when we compare the two groups, and here I've just used complete cases, so individuals where we've got data at both baseline and follow-up, which is actually a smaller sample than 199, it's actually 169. We don't find any significant change in contact with a range of health services, both primary care, but also inpatient visits over that time period. And that's not due to any issue with the randomization, that was good, and we didn't find any significant differences between the groups at baseline. We also didn't find differences within the city subgroups. But again, something for context, which I think is very important in looking at this, is when we went on to analyze quality of life, I think it's fair to say that our sample has pretty good quality of life, both groups actually. So again, the results might be more nuanced if we have different people with different characteristics, perhaps more health related problems than what we have in this group. But that's the initial analysis we have there, that there isn't much change in service use. But then again, there's actually very low contact with services in both groups at the beginning. And in an ideal world, I would want to do this over a longer time period, because I think you need a longer time period sometimes to see changes in health service utilization. Next slide, Micah. We've also looked at quality of life. Now, the results look slightly different to the ones Francesco presented, and they're for a couple of reasons. One, again, we've looked at complete cases only, so it's only 163 people who provided data on that. We've not done any imputation here at all in this analysis, and we've used an approach that economists often use called bootstrapping, where we randomly resample thousands of times from the data to try and deal with issues around whether or not the sample is representative of the population, and we do various things to deal with that. And when we do that, what we do find actually is that, again, no significant difference in quality of life. Quality of life doesn't change, although it is better in the intervention group. But again, I must stress that that's not a significant difference, so you can't interpret it in that way. But again, I would argue that with a larger sample and perhaps with a longer time period, we might see more on that, but that's something that has to be tested. So there are some encouraging data, I would say there. But again, as Francesco was saying, what's really important, and others have said it as well, is the subgroup analysis, the regression analysis that are undertaken, looking at different characteristics and seeing whether we can identify particular factors that may be associated with differences in outcomes. And I should also say that there were a couple of extreme outliers in the data in terms of having very poor quality of life. And again, removing those outliers might also have an impact, and we need to look at that and see. Next slide, Micah. So I try to be very brief here. And I stress that our analysis is inconclusive, but that doesn't necessarily mean there isn't an economic case. Far from it. Far from it. We know that there are significant costs associated with health conditions that are linked to light exposure, poor light exposure. Insomnia is one, depression is another. There are a couple of examples. There are also practical examples around other aspects of well-being that we've seen from Anna as well. So that there is potentially an economic case there if the intervention makes a difference. Now, one of the things I think we need to do, the analysis that Deborah put forward earlier, where we're looking at the differences in light exposure, we're doing some subgroup analysis now on that as well, and seeing what difference that makes in terms of the economic case. But I think also we need to think about whether or not it would be worth investing more time and resource in additional measures to try and maybe change behavior more, or maybe try and encourage, once we've done the analysis in terms of how often people use the lamps for and the time of day and so forth, there may be simple techniques that we can use to try and actually encourage more fidelity in a sense, or more greater use of the lamps than perhaps might have been the case in the study. And there are strong arguments from an economic perspective to actually build that into any implementation, that you actually have a behavior change element built into the actual intervention alongside the intervention itself. And we will also model some of the longer term consequences on health and wellbeing outcomes, because our data are only for a 3-month period. But in health economics, we can actually do some extrapolation. We can also present scenarios that look at the minimum level of effect that needs to be achieved in order for interventions to be cost effective. And that can also be helpful to policymakers. And then one final thing, just to say as well, is that the results of the analysis will also be partly dependent, well, very much dependent actually, on the cost of the intervention itself. And then if this is funded by health systems, let's say, if the evidence is there that it works and it's funded by health systems, then they may have greater purchasing power to reduce down the cost of some of these lamps, and that might also have an impact on cost effectiveness. So I'll leave it there for now, and I'm also available to answer questions if necessary. Thanks.
Thanks, David, and thanks to all the other speakers. Well, as a
There is some problem on Maike's side. So we cannot hear her. Perhaps she will be able to join later. I don't know if there are questions.
I was going to say she's lost the light. She's in the dark side at the moment, Micah.
Otherwise, we can just take a short break of 5 minutes and then go back, and hopefully Maike will be back with us. So see you in at 4:30, let's say. Okay. See you later. So we are back. I hope that Meike was able to join again.
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry, this is actually never happens. I was just really thrown out of the Wi-Fi of my university, and also out of the Euro thing at the university. So I was just internet empty for. But the good news was it already started popping up in my screen while David was still talking, and we made it at least to the end of your talk. So I was just wrapping up. Trying to say that we're looking at a very complex system, and that any results doesn't mean that there is not an effect. Same with exercise. I think the major aim for us as scientists is to find what works for whom in what way, and that's also what Don mentioned. Human beings are complex systems, and we're all different. And I think we have a beautiful team, lots of data. We'll work on all the papers and keep you informed on the outcomes. And of course, if there's any question, please let me know or let the team know, because it was a wonderful team presentation.
Thank you so much for this team presentation, for the great results, and also so we can see that there is still more to be done. So we have done a lot, but still there is also room for other research to be carried on in the next week. I think we can go on with the presentation of the guidelines. Giulia will present on behalf of the Univo team. If there are questions, you can also use the chat so that we can collect them and have a final session of question and answers. So Giulia, it's your turn.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you for giving me the floor. The presentation is about what we also already, always call the guidelines, but we would like to propose, what we want to propose is a new vision for urban lighting for health and well-being. This is how they are looking at the moment. It's still a work in progress. We still have couple of weeks to fine-tune all the contents and the design, but what you can see has also, it has been a process. So we first presented a structure, and we really thank you, the two boards of the projects that are the boards of cities as the board of lighting companies, because the contents have been really fine-tuned with them, discussed with them, and we learned from them expectation, and we included it in the work. Of course, this document collects the results mainly coming from work package 2. So of course, thank you also to the team, because the main results are coming from that work packages, and hopefully something from work package 3 at the end will be included in this final rush of time that we still have until the end of the project. What is the aim of this document? Mainly is to raise awareness among decision makers about the importance of knowledge-based lighting policies, but also leveraging insights and lessons learned from the projects and from the project sites, and also offer the opportunity to policy and decision makers to explore new way of planning and designing lighting, promoting healthier and more sustainable environments. Our target audience are policymakers, urban and lighting departments of municipalities, health and social services departments, so mainly people working in cities, in municipalities. And what we really target at the end is the quality of life of our citizens. So what we refer to during all the document is how to plan and design lighting for quality of life. This is the structure of the guidelines as they are. So there is the first part related to setting the scene. So all the discourse and the reasonings around lighting, health and well-being in the sense of the quality of life, and also which are the instruments of dealing with lighting available for policymakers. And then there are two main sessions that are the core of the document, in which we provide some recommendations, some suggestions for the cities to embrace this new approach. Going more into details, the first part, I won't repeat the content of this first part because you already heard it during the day. We started with a glossary, so we tried to establish the terminology that we would like to use throughout the document, and also what is quality of life and how lighting is impacting the quality of life. So especially how it impacts social activities and how it can foster inclusion, equality, density, and also the life that you have in public space. Then the second part is trying to give to municipalities a new approach to lighting design and planning. Firstly, by also establishing a vision within the cities. So we start with we propose to establish a multidisciplinary team within the teamwork of the municipalities through the engagement of stakeholders. And so here we try to list all the expertise that might have an interest in working with lighting and citizens. So the idea is to try to overcome the silos approach, also through training. And so we provide here also what we did with the health city management approach. We tested it in our 3 cities of the project for a better policy coordination. So there are already some tips on how to create a multidisciplinary team, how to train the people working in the municipalities to have a common language about lighting, and also understanding, for example, that there are different domains of light, because cities approach lighting at different scales. It could be for more at more policy levels. So cities might want to create a master plan, for example, for all the cities, but also can be activities related to projects for specific part of the city. So this is the part related mainly to this create the vision within the municipalities. And then we try to give an approach, so trying to set up some steps and some activities for building this new strategic approach to lighting planning and design that is more sensitive to health and well-being. So firstly, we try to pass our work that we did in knowledge, the cities, in the city knowledge. So all the work that has been presented before in the framework of our platform, because data are really powerful and cities already have a lot of data available, and this can enhance lighting policies that are really evidence-based, and also are useful to put lighting into wider also city strategies. So knowing the situation of the cities is really important to start also planning lighting policies. And here you have some domains in which this data can support lighting design, that are those that you already seen before. So it's important to have a socioeconomic idea of the district or the city. You would have to know about urban conditions, but also lighting data and health and well-being data. And then we recommend to adopt a strategic approach, because lighting cannot be treated separately from social practices. Also, as you already heard it during Don's presentation. So we try to vehiculate this message, trying to say that it's really important to understand what people need, how they want to use that space that we are going to light. So social research, site-specific analysis, and co-design is really a crucial tool that we are here suggesting to cities to adopt. And also we did a kind of, we give some tools to do this research. So you can do some semi-structured interviews with stakeholders, but also walkabouts, observations, workshop with participants, but also meetings to share the vision, the importance of lighting, making people aware of lighting and the importance of lighting in changing their daily routine, for example, in the use of public space. So here, what is really important is to understand people's needs and try to design lighting in a way that is comfortable for them. But it's also important to have community engagement and public engagement because, as I said before, lighting should be part of a wider planning and design approach. So it's not about workshops, but it can also be that lighting is treated in some public events. It's also really important to emphasize the relation between the social research and lighting design and development, and also engagement with key stakeholders, also local ones. So it's here you can see a kind of relationship between the policymakers, technical departments, and health and social services providers that are our target, with the vulnerable groups, with the carers, with local organizations. So it's really important to establish this relationship between the teamwork of the municipality and the local stakeholders of the place that we are going to study. And it's also good to have the possibility of prototyping, piloting, demonstrating. And here the smart lighting that we used was very effective because we could play with different parameters and really understand how they influence the perception of space, the use of space. So it has been really a power tool. Also giving the power to citizens to control their light has been really a nice adventure. And this, so you can also try to experiment with these unconventional approaches. And also the monitoring part, it's really important and really new for cities if you adopt a kind of tunable and adaptable instruments. Because it's not something that you do once, but it's something that is continuous, because if you can change parameters and lighting settings, it's something that you have to continue in a coherent and consistent way, also with citizens. So also to perform with other workshops, so interviews, to understand the feedbacks of the public and to see how effective are the interventions. And finally, we close these guidelines with some recommendations that try to wrap up and summarize the key points that we addressed during these projects. So we, again, summarize that it's really important to have an holistic approach to lighting interventions. It's not possible that one size fits all works everywhere. So we should try to also overcome standardized parameters. It's really important to integrate social services providers into public space design, because it's really important to match the social services and social activities with the lighting planning. We should try to design light for inclusive public spaces, and so trying to embrace also the differences of people and planning with embracing this complexity that is a word that has been really mentioned many times today. So it's really crucial that we try to understand this complexity and plan for it. And try to integrate lighting in the wider planning policies and not treated it in isolation, only as a maintenance work within municipalities, for example. And then finally, there is the recommendation to adopt this One Health approach. So it's to speak with the human and to to have recommendations for improving health and well-being of people. Of course, we have to take into account also biodiversity, for example. So it's something that should be integrated also with other aspects of and other humans and other maybe animals, let's say. So an approach that is bigger than that only one related to humans. That's all. So if you have questions, otherwise, as soon as we will finalize the document, it will be available for you.
Thank you very much, Giulia. I would go on immediately with the following presentation by Aitz again about the decision support system, because it's very linked, is sort of a way of making available the guidelines in a more user-friendly way. So Aitz and Amaya. I cannot hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, yes.
Yes, this presentation is about another of the tools that we have been built. I'm going to do a brief presentation to the contest, but after my colleague Amaya is going to show you indeed the tool. So as Simona said, this is very related to the guidelines, because the objective of this tool is operationalize the guidelines and results developed in the project to offer to cities a tool to help making high-level decisions for healthy urban lighting policies. In short, what we want to is facilitate the implementation of this new vision that Julia was talking about. It has been and it's been very challenging. We are still working in that. Surely, you know, if you have been working in this kind of long projects, the ones that you have to gather the last result are the ones after that you have to rush in the final moment, because, of course, to produce the result, you need time. And so we are still working on it because now are the final result coming, like the guidelines or the result for the work package 3. So I would like to stress this, that there is a tool that is still, we are working on that, and we will work until the last minute of the project. But we already have the structure and already it's online. It's integrated again in the ENLIGHTEnme platform in this up right part that put DSS, Decision Support System, is online and is available in the same link that we saw before, and we will put again. And the idea of this decision support system is to structure the guidelines and the result in the project in a who, what, where, how framework. That means that we want to offer tailored result, how, and guidelines depending on who is the user is. They are the same end users as the guidelines. We have the policymakers, the technical and maintenance department, and also the health, well-being, and social services department. And we want to offer something for each of them. Also, what the end user is looking for, what are the interests, and that you can select. You can select upon 3 of 1. And also give some advice depending of the location of the interest of the user. So you can choose where are you, or what are your zone that you are interested. With this, the decision support system frames the guidelines and the project result in the different steps of the process, as you can see here, and soon Amaya is going to show you. And also frames the project result and the different steps of the process. As you can see in the right, you have different links to deliverables, papers, and also tools like the platform that we were showing, but more specifically tailored to your location or the process that the step of the process that you are. In this way, as I said before, it's connected with a platform offering a specific result depending on the user profile and the step of the process. I mean, you can go to one specific map, and also you can explore the atlas, or you can, but they offer you more specific or tailored result. More content is coming soon, as soon as there is finishing, like the polyfill brief, also the results from the population-based study. We want to include videos also, and we want to include the indoor light recommendation. As I said before, the tool is in progress, so we will ask you to help us to enhance it. So after Amaya saw it, we will have some time if you want to try it, and also we would like to give the link to some questionnaire to take your feedback. We are late, but I guess we can leave like 5 minutes to try a little, and for if there is any question. And if not, of course, you can try later. Any feedback that you can offer to us is more than welcome. So I give the floor to Amaya, that is going to show you the tool.
Okay. Okay, hi, I'm Amaya. I'm ITV's colleague. Did you see that my screen?
Yeah. Yes, we see it.
Okay, so, well, as my colleague has said, this platform is designed to help decision makers understand the importance of knowledge-based lighting policies. So its goal is to develop urban lighting strategies. And well, let's start. So first of all, the key features will be like that is well-being oriented. It's well-being oriented approach, the personalization that you will show next. So as ITver has said, the information will be different depending on the profile you are. Like if you are a lighting, a policymaker or urban planning, for example. It will take account the interest you have and where you are. And after gather all this information, the strategies or case studies will be shown to the users. So as we said, first you need to say who you are. In this case, for example, if I'm a urban planner, I will select this choice, continue. Then the interest will appear, so you can choose whatever you want, for example, design and education. And then it asks you where you are. It's just clicking where you are, in my case, for example, Bilbao. And here you will have 2 parts. For example, first one, the second one is going directly to the atlas that my colleague Artivers has shown you like some time, like in her first presentation. So here you will go to this atlas with filtered by the interest that you have chosen, and then you can go back to the DSS. In this second part, you will go to the strategies that we have taken, for example, from the guidelines. And this part is divided like kind of in 2 parts. The first part will be to explain the importance of why light is important. Sorry, and there are in all these steps will be some sub steps, I can say it, or subsections, and that will lead you, for example, to another page where you will have always a brief explanation and links to, for example, in this case, to the paper of the effect of lighting on well-being, or, for example, to the deliverables that have been done in this project. So. As I said, as my colleague has explained, and you will have also like an urban analysis, the design, information for designing, and another interesting thing is that you will have also a case study. So you can click on any subsection that is that you want, and to check what has been done in this part. In all of the profiles strategies, or well, in this page, sorry, and the last two parts will be same for all of three of them, and there will be some recommendations and the chance to go again to the atlas that I have shown you before, and check the results of the projects or other papers that will interest you. Well, sorry, I just realized that I missed one of the options that, as Tiber has shown you some of the slides. In some of the subsections, you can, depending on the position or the place you are, it will lead you to all these maps to check how are the results in this project. I hope I explained myself, and well, if you have any questions, or just let me know. And yeah.
Thank you, Amaya. As we said before, this is totally ongoing working. So now also is the moment that we can get some feedback. So here you have the link is the same as the link to a platform. Everything is integrated in the same place. Only you have to go to the DSS section, just up right. And also, we will be very grateful if you could give us some feedback through the link that we can put here to a questionnaire. I don't know, Simona, Elisa, you can leave 5 minutes to check a little, or we are too late in that. So also, if you are looking at that and you have any question, yeah.
Yes.
If there is any question or now any comment on live also, it's more than welcome.
If there are no questions, we can perhaps ask to fill the form during the other presentations and have 5 minutes at the end, so we do not wait now.
Yeah.
If you agree. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you. We go on, we skip the next presentation because Chiara Spinato had a problem and she cannot join us now. Hopefully she will be here in a few minutes, but I asked to Patricia to give a presentation about the ENLIGHTENme awareness raising campaign.
Yeah, no problem. You should hopefully see my screen now.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so I'm Patricia Alvin. I'm representing EURIS. We've been the work package leader for work package 6, which is focused on communication, dissemination, and exploitation. So we have been supporting the entire consortium with all these activities throughout the project. And in particular, as part of the communication and dissemination activities, it was decided to prepare an awareness raising campaign called Lighting Up City Life. So now I'd just like to give you a little bit of information about this campaign. So Lighting Up City Life. So what was the aim of this campaign? We want to address citizens and in general raise overall awareness that lighting can have an effect on people's health and well-being. And the goal of the campaign was to offer tips and recommendations for how to reorganize light in the home, and in general just allowing people to take control of their home environment with the possibility to improve their quality of life and in turn reduce adverse health and well-being effects. And of course, this is all based on the learnings that have come out of particularly Work Package 2 and Work Package 3. So what we have collaborated with these work packages to come up with some form of communication awareness raising materials. So in order to do this, we split the campaign in 2 stages. So stage 2 was delivered in January last year. And this was focused more on the project as a whole. So really just a general awareness of the ENLIGHTENme project, and also making citizens aware that both indoor and outdoor light can have an effect on people's health and well-being. So just to give this overall awareness of what the project is about. And this was, the first part of this was preparing a general video presenting the ENLIGHTENme research, including the objectives and envisaged impacts. And as mentioned, this was really targeting citizens